Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley, coming to LA and wreaking havoc in his own charming, charismatic way in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Alonzo, you made the great point that this is just like Top Gun Maverick.
Yes. Title of 80s hit, character you love in that movie. Somebody at Paramount thought of this. I'm sure they were all over it.
There's no seatbelt in the middle. What the hell with the seatbelt? We're on the edge!
So Eddie Murphy is Axel Foley again, and he's still doing his thing in Detroit and destroying property and annoying his superiors, namely Paul Reiser, who is now his chief and is on the verge of retiring. But he finds out that his daughter, his much estranged daughter Jane, who lives in LA, played by the wonderful Taylour Paige, is doing a pro bono case defending a guy who's accused of being a cop killer. And it's a case that Axel's old friend Billy Rosewood, once again played by Judge Reinhold, has been investigating, so much so that he actually quit the force to do so. And when Billy goes missing, Axel decides to come help out, despite the fact that he and Jane don't really talk much, and she really resents his presence there. They wind up investigating a vast conspiracy that, of course, all comes down to Kevin Bacon. And that's not a spoiler, because Kevin Bacon is the obvious bad guy in this movie from the moment he steps on screen, much like the guy who plays Victor Maitland in the original. And, you know, the usual shenanigans ensue. But what's interesting about this movie, I think, is that it is directly addressing the elephant of the room, which is the 40 years that have passed since Beverly Hills Cop. And the fact that Axel Foley is still doing the same stuff and behaving the same way is a thing he kind of gets called on in this movie, mainly by the daughter character. We also get a brand new Beverly Hills Cop, Detective Abbott, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is game for doing this. And I have to say, I mostly enjoyed this. I think it works, especially after suffering through like Coming to America.
That was not good.
Which was just such a literal retread of every single joke from the first movie. This one feels like it has some perspective and some ideas about who these people might be after all this time. And I think Murphy is a much better actor now than he was in the first Beverly Hills Cop, and I think is able to play other things besides like, I'm the fish out of water, you know. So yeah, I had a good time with this.
I am shocked at how much I enjoyed this, because I was not optimistic. I'm like, oh my gosh, 40 years later, like we're going back to this. And how does he fit into that role again? He's not in his early 20s anymore, when it was like, exciting for him to stir it up, as the song goes, and to be insubordinate and to be like outside the system and playing by his own rules. How does he still do that as a grown-ass man? And so his demeanor has tempered somewhat, but those instincts remain the same, as you say. You know, the whole opening sequence is to go undercover and wreak havoc with a snowplow now instead of a big rig, and it's a very exciting opening chase to a different song that is not Neutron Dance.
Yes.
But I was actually delighted with how they thread that needle between giving the people what they want and hitting some of the beats you expect. I mean, this is essentially the same exact plot as the original Beverly Hills Cop, and you have a lot of the same characters returning, but it also ups the ante in terms of the action. You see that budget on display here.
Oh yeah.
So Glenn Whipp and I drove to Maxine together. We were talking about this movie, and he was saying that the budget was like $150 million, which I think you see in that giant helicopter chase in downtown LA. That is very exciting. That opening snowplow thing. And these things feel pretty real and tangible and substantial, and not like glossy CGI. Like it's really, really well done in terms of the effects.
When we talked about the original Beverly Hills Cop, you pointed out how little of it takes place in Beverly Hills. And here we get a shootout at Wilshire and Doheny right in front of the Lumiere Music Hall. And I'm sure there was probably some green screen involved, but it felt like they blocked that area off. I'm sure it was early on a Sunday morning or whatever, but you know, there's an effort to up the Beverly Hillsness of it all, which I guess will be lost on people who don't live here. But you know, you and I certainly
we got it. Yeah, our friends at the Music Hall, which is one of our earliest movie house shout out theaters that we spotlighted here. So hi to them. I hope they got some extra business that week. You know, people coming in to get popcorn at least or something like that. So yeah, that was really well done. found that was staged in a way that was very tense, like blocked and staged. Like, I'm not saying it's like the Heat shootout, but it's well done in terms of how they use that space. Yeah. There are totally stakes. And this also works because you care more about that relationship with his daughter, played by Taylour Paige, as you mentioned. One of the complaints that you had about the original one is that the friendships with the two characters from his home don't feel real. They feel kind of wedged in. And this, you feel those years of estrangement and resentment, and you feel him wanting to reconnect with her. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt fits in really well into that dynamic as well.
Yeah. And they do the thing where they sort of, you think they're going to restage certain events from the first film, and then they kind of play with it and undercut it themselves and sort of like comment upon them. So that's fun. That's a little Gremlins 2, sprinkle, I think, in terms of like, yeah, we know you think you're going to get this, but you're going to get something else. And there are some dopey screenwriting choices, like the Jane's life is threatened on multiple occasions, and by the end of the movie, she's still just like hopping into a car without looking in the back seat first or being assigned protection or anything. So that's kind of like, oh, come on already. But it could be shorter, and there could be a little less like, can't believe we're doing this again. That sequel joke that everybody loves to do. But overall, I think this works. Like, I think there's a lot in here where I would say this is how you do a Lego sequel. Like, if you're gonna bring these characters back, make them characters. And I feel like we get a depth in a way to Axel Foley that we don't normally do in the previous ones. And there are some fun sort of shout outs to how this franchise has gone over the years. So yeah, I had a good time.
That was a good bit. Yes, it's like the funniest line. I laughed out loud. I thought that took chutzpah for them to acknowledge the legacy of this whole franchise. And besides Rosewood and Taggart, we also get Surge. He comes back. That whole sequence is maybe the highlight for me, where they go with Surge and the actress who plays the
Nasim Pedrad from SNL. Yeah.
So funny. Like, the delivery is so tossed off and deadpan and funny every single time. Like, that is a highlight. So that's a good example of finding a new way into a thing that we already know, but like maintaining the Beverly Hills-ishness of it all. So
absolutely.
I was really surprised. I did not have a whole lot of hope, to such an extent that I think this should be going out in theaters. Like, it's only playing on Netflix, and this would be like, in an ordinary world, like gangbusters summer entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because, I think on the one hand, like 3 was a bit of a letdown, but you're right. This one, they feel like they're back on their game here, and there are some sequences that would be a lot of fun to see in the big screen. Like, they not only return to Rodeo Drive, but they figure out how to do a chase through that pedestrian mall.
Yes.
With the steps and everything. So it's like, that I could see seeing that with an audience. That would be fun.
Yeah. So anyway, what's your number then on Axel F?
Like a 7.9. Far better than it had any right to be.
Yeah, I'm around there too. I would say like a 7.8. Like, it's a little long. It takes a little long for all of those things to resolve themselves. It is all of 2 hours, or probably could be a little more spry, but
for sure.
But when it is on and it's like exhilarating action, it is very much worth watching. So Axel F is on Netflix. Go check it out.